NATO and NORDEFCO in order to bring the Ukrainian victory closer. We're having with us very important guests, esteemed guest, the Jonas Hagren, Vice Admiral, and also the Swedish representative to NATO's Military Committee. So please welcome. And also Katarina Tolkfors, member of the Swedish Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee, Moderate Party. Today, when we are having this discussion, the Kiev was again under the very big attack this night. Air raid sirens, explosions, shattered homes. And this is the hard reality we wake up to every day in Ukraine. This is the call to responsibility for all of us, because Ukraine defends not only its own security, but also the security of the whole Europe and the democratic values. We stand today at a very pivotal moment, and the world is witnessing the very dangerous shifts, where democracy is being tested and where fundamental principles of justice and sovereignty are at stake. And we have received a lot of statements also from the US, the partner that we used to have very close cooperation and to have the backup. And the very chilling message that security guarantees can be traded like commodities, that sovereignty can be negotiated away, and that alliances can be devaluated in pursuit of short-term goals. This is not just Ukrainian concern, it's also warning for every democratic nation. So maybe later I would like you to address also some of these issues and of your view, because Sweden and US are very close partners, the same as Ukraine and Sweden and US. I would like to say that democracy must be armed. That's why in our organization, the Capacity Democracy Week, it's the prototype, the analog of the Swedish Almedalen Sveka. We are doing a lot to also arm Ukraine, and we will have a very short film about it that will be right now. It will be short about how the non-governmental organization that doesn't have anything to do with military, but extraordinary time requires extraordinary decisions. So now even the Nobel Peace Laureate that received the Nobel Peace Prize in Norway, that she is calling to arm Ukraine. So we are in all civil society organizations, we cannot stand aside. So this is only one small action, among the 1,000 actions that we are doing every day, bringing the cars for the military, bringing the drones, all kinds of drones to the military, and also now helping to produce the Ukrainian military drones that are like kamikaze drones, but multiply-use kamikazes. So this is something new for all the countries, and that can be useful, this experience, for all the countries. So if you could please have a film.
We thank the Capacity Democratic, Lilia Honcharevich, Ger Horten, and the company SPs for their cooperation. Yes, thanks to this cooperation, positions were defended in certain directions, targets were destroyed, and the lives of our unit soldiers were saved repeatedly.
The direct assistance model means that requests for defense products come directly from military units to manufacturers. Production financing is provided directly to the manufacturer from Northern Europe under the control of the State Innovation Financial and Credit Institution under the Ministry of Strategic Industries of Ukraine. Northern European countries create joint defense enterprises in Ukraine, investing in the production of air defense systems, drones, electronic warfare systems, etc. The direct financing model is an investment in the security of the whole of Europe.
The SPAS drone complex is immediately ready for use. The direct assistance model operates promptly and provides every unit with everything necessary. We ask our partners from other countries to join so that we can bring our victory closer.
closely with the Ministry of Strategic Industries of Ukraine to help to produce the drones. And now we are registered with NORDEFCO, the state agency for innovation, that are helping like the state guarantee for the drone has an innovative component that it's useful at the front line, and a lot of military units have already tested it on the battlefield. So, and we have already even we have even developed this model of the non-governmental organizations, the government, the parliaments, civil society, that you are also, we will give you also the later this paper that we have already discussed with Denmark. So maybe it's something that Sweden can also do. But I would like to also mention that our strength is in unity, and if democracy is to survive, we need to do everything is in our power in order to make the victory closer and to arm Ukraine so that we can give the very real response to the Russian aggression in terms of the military. So, and Sweden just recently, not so far ago, became the member of NATO. How did it change the perspectives, and how did the membership of Sweden, that we have the honor to share the color of our flag with, how it could help and how it could benefit Ukraine? And what could you say, it's also the question to you, what could you say after the membership in NATO? Do you see any changes that Sweden is experiencing? Maybe like the security, or how is the feeling, their real perspectives, their trainings, their arming?
Yes. First of all, thank you for the invitation and for all those questions. Quite complex in themselves, but I can start with our journey as a NATO member. We've been members now for just over a year. I would say the Swedish membership made an immediate impact on the security of the whole of NATO and the alliance, as both Sweden and Finland became members. It also made both the alliance safer and stronger. And that feeling, I think, is quite potent also within NATO itself. We make a difference, and we have contributed very early into all the various activities that NATO conducts, both operationally, but also integrating ourselves in the plans. I think our accession process, which was in NATO terms very quick, although we didn't feel it was quick enough, as it was, of course, a direct consequence of the Russian war in Ukraine. And as you well know, Russia is a threat for the whole of NATO. Two threats, Russia and terrorism, that is the two main threats NATO is actually dealing with. How does this help Ukraine? Of course, as you also know, NATO actively supports Ukraine, as does Sweden, and also wants to see Ukraine win and get a just and lasting peace. With that said, Ukraine is on a journey itself, politically, which is not me as a military to go into in depth. But of course you are on a journey, and the experiences that you are, as you are conducting a war, but also as you are conducting it in very close partnership with the alliance and also with all the nations and all the organizations that are supporting Ukraine. Of course, this will be useful to you when you continue the journey towards an aspiring NATO membership. So those are a few points. But for us, with coming into NATO, I feel that we are new, but we are definitely not treated as beginners. We come in with a long history of partnership with NATO, very similar to yours. And that has given us a lot of advantages in getting into NATO quickly and into the processes. But then, as you know, NATO is a huge bureaucracy, and like any big bureaucracy with 32 member states, consensus, you also need to be very you learn very quickly how quickly or how slowly it also can take to make decisions in such a big organization. Although the unity of NATO is quite potent, and also when things really matter, you do get swift decision making also with the 32. So just a few reflections, and I'll hand over to Katarina who can give some more political insights maybe.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to this important discussion. Ukraine and the Russian illegal war on Ukraine is on top of the political agenda. For sure, it is the most prioritized foreign issue that our government, but also the parliament, is discussing right now for obvious reasons. We are very thankful that Ukraine is fighting a war not only for your own country but also for Sweden and Europe's security. It's in our own interest that you will win both the war and the peace. I'm happy to say that the cooperation between Ukraine and Sweden have increased, and we see you as a partner, but also, of course, that we are one of the countries that support you with military, economic and humanitarian support. And we are in for the long run. As our Prime Minister say, it's not a 100-meter competition, it's a marathon, and we have to have a long-term commitment and plan. For Sweden, joining NATO as a full member, of course, was the last very important piece of the puzzle. We have now also deepened the cooperation with the Nordic countries, but also with the Baltic states. The NORDEFCO cooperation also is something that we are increasing, working closer together, and it's obvious that that is very important for Europe to step up. I think you mentioned the US position on Ukraine, and I think it's very clear that Europe, Sweden, we have to step up for our own security and defense in a way that we have not done in decades. So we can also see that democracy is on decline. There are countries and forces that don't want to see the world-based order as we know it, and we can also see that building defense capabilities that would serve Ukraine but also Europe, we have to do a lot of strategic choices and prioritize. And I was just recently in the EU Parliament in a debate, and it's very clear that every country in the EU are aware that we have to step up. We will still work on the transatlantic link. It's very important to have the US as a continued partner on trade, on defense and security. But Sweden and Europe needs to step up, and we are together aligned to defend and support Ukraine.
Thank you. We have here really very nice to have the political and the military perspective at the same time. But also the question, do we treat this war as a war to win or just the crisis to manage? Because like while in Ukraine and every night, every sleepless night, experiencing all these air sirens and bombings, it's really the question that we are receiving the arms too slowly and too little. We are speaking about Sky Shield, as far as I remember, since the first day of the full-scale war. If we would have all those equipment, at least half of it in the beginning of the full-scale war, so I am sure that we won't have the war right now. And the question is, when the Russia is capable to produce like in 3 months what the whole NATO and Ukraine can produce in 1 year, it raises a lot of questions. And this question is very disturbing not only for Ukraine, because after Ukraine, it will be other countries, Baltic and other countries. And Sweden is also, we are on the Gotland, the so-called Swedish Crimea. So you also feel this threat. Is it in the very close perspective you are considering to increase the production and to also make the co-production of the military of the drones in Ukraine? Because as I said, in Ukraine the capability is really, really huge, and we are not using them. Although logistically it's much more cheaper, technically it's also much more advanced, because the kind of drones that are used now at the warfare, neither Sweden or Norway or any other countries have, because they are developing every day. And that's why when I receive from the military the signals that they receive the drones from some countries, in tender, they cannot use it because it takes around 3 months to get, at least 3-4 months at least, to get the equipment from other countries, like for example drones that are developing every day, but they cannot use it because it's no longer of use, because the frequency at the front line, it's changing. And to record the drone, it requires really really a big, they cannot do it. For example, they have something from America they're standing in the storage and they're of no use. But instead, the drones that are produced in Ukraine, they are much more cheaper, than they are effective, because they are adapting the producers. It's one of the 700 producers that we have in Ukraine, but it's proved to be very efficient, because a lot of military units come back that said, yeah, it's we have here even this kind of drone that is very effective. And whether you consider somehow to have the co-production in Ukraine and also maybe also the joint ventures, or how are you going to stipulate their also defense capabilities of Sweden?
Well, from a military perspective, production capability in the coming years will be of utmost importance if we are going to be able to use the economy that is now being put into place to bolster the plans for NATO, but also for support Ukraine. The experiences from Ukraine have been utterly important also for NATO and for Sweden, to see how fast and what other ways you need to do as you are fighting a war. And there's in no way I can put myself into your shoes or try to do. But of course we are trying to do everything we can within the remits that we have in balancing both to support Ukraine and at the same time having to build up the problem of all this, which is Russia, to build up our own capabilities. I mean, that is the constant trade-off that has to be made within both in the military committee but also with nations. And at the moment, of course, Ukraine goes first in many ways for us nationally, and we have to balance that risk. So with that said, I think any incentives that are being made that you are describing are what you have to do in war. You have to find innovation, you have to find new ways, you have to speed up, you have to break through bureaucracies that we have built up during this peace dividend that has been at least paramount in Western Europe, which is what we're trying to do. But it's tough. But rightly so, the Russians are outproducing us at the moment, and that is also important for us to have a long-term strategy on what I keep coming back to. The war is at the moment fought in Ukraine, but the conflict is against the whole of the West. So we have to ramp up both production, and we have to get that production line so that we pass the Russians and outproduce them, which we can. It's more of a will and also getting those things into place. So there are many things there that you are pointing to that we are learning as much as you are, of course, getting support from us. So it goes on both ways.
Yes, thank you. No, I agree from a political standpoint. I was in Ukraine in August 2023, and that was a very good learning lesson for me as a politician to be there. We were invited by the Speaker of your Parliament, and we met also with soldiers that had been to the front. And yes, we learn as we go. even from the political side. Absolutely, Sweden will make prioritize to speed up the production. The whole system and all the processes in EU, but also in Sweden, we have to work faster. We are in my constituency in Karlskoga, the production facilities that do ammunition are now on 5 shifts. I think the system is really pressured, but at the same time, more resources are coming from the political view to help speed up the work and the production. At the same time, we are parallel to that building our own defense, and it is a balance. And I cannot promise a specific when it comes to drones. We know what country supports Russia, but I would not rule out, of course, if we find cooperations and you can have the capability in country, in Ukraine, I'm sure that would be something that other countries and also Sweden would encourage. So I wouldn't, yes, but I cannot promise specific corporations and how that's going to be done. I think that we will see more of corporations in different areas, and drones, as we know, is one of the capabilities that we need to support for Ukraine, but also for our own capability.
Thank you. Very nice, very good points. But at the same time, it's much more cheaper to stop Ukraine, to stop the war at the Ukraine territories than let it spread furthermore. And actually, when you are saying about your capabilities and also about the defense of Sweden, it's also a very important issue. But as I said before, like the capabilities of Ukrainian drone producers, of the all other equipment that we have, also the arms and like all kind of cars and equipment and tanks, they are there. So whether it will be also cheaper for Sweden to help to have the co-production and also to have this experience. And also the question whether Sweden is going to push for the integration, like the training within the NORDEFCO, and whether there is any capabilities, like for example, how Sweden can help Ukraine to become the NATO member much more quicker. Any advices?
All very political questions, so I think I've already answered some of it. We can give Ukraine our military experiences, our experiences on how the process works, or how it kind of moves along and what's important in that. And then the actual decision or the support, that's not for me to have any comments about. But as you know, we are close partners and friends and partners with you. So we will give all the experiences that we have had. That's no question on that. On the NORDEFCO side and the training side, we are involved in training and supporting you in a lot of channels, NATO, EU, bilaterally, like many other countries. And anything that can make that more efficient and bolster it, we will of course look at and want to achieve. Well aware also that it's like a spaghetti of support systems that somehow is working because there's a war on and it has to work. But I think there's always things that you can do there and that you can hopefully find ways of getting consensus in NATO with or in EU, and where we can help as a nation. So I think those are a few of my perspectives. I think Katarina might have a few more.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, no, first of all, we support the process with you becoming a member of the EU. We surely think that you belong in the European family, and I'm impressed that you are doing that process parallel to fighting a war. So the focus from our side now is to support you in the ways that we can through EU and on the peace process and negotiations. We clearly know that Russia is not really in that mindset because of the attacks. That's a clear signal where they are, but that's something that we want to focus on. NATO in the long run, absolutely, but I think EU is the first political priority, and then EU or NATO would be the next step. But I think that with the cooperations that we have and that the Vice Admiral mentioned, we do support you on the political military side in many ways, and I think we have to do this step by step.
Thank you a lot. And we have talked a lot, actually, in Ukraine and B8 meetings and a lot of other meetings about their secure real-time battlefield intelligence sharing. So I think this is like the instrument, and in the future, your opinion, can we replace somehow the American intelligence? Like, because actually what we are now looking at, whether we can, it's very good to have America at side, but at the same time, we have to be prepared for all kinds of scenarios, because we don't have the luxury to wait and see. We need to do it right now. So this question is like really, really very painful. So what would you say about that?
I think intelligence and good intelligence is the key to be successful in any war or conflict. And we really don't know at the moment how the rebalancing of the US capabilities in Europe will look like. We know that there will be such a process, and hopefully it will be both ordered and structured. And it's also fully clear, and it should have been many years ago, that Europe needs to step up and pay and do what it needs to do for its own security. And part of this is intelligence. To do it quickly is difficult, of course, with what type of structures you need to build up. So I think that will be a challenge if this happens. But I think definitely there is a European capability to be able to do it. It's once again a question of production, getting the capability in place and the competence to do it. But on one issue, I mean, we have been very reliant upon US ISR, as we say in military terms, and that's really as far as I can go on that question. But it's in the remit of the coming capability targets, both within NATO as well. But it's still too early to have any. You can speculate a lot about what the US is going to do or not going to do. I'm fully comfortable with that. I know that the US will be staying within NATO. They will have their commitment in Article 5, and they will have a military capability. But they need to rebalance with the Indo-Pacific, and we need to fill that void as quickly as possible. That is very important for us, for all of our security. And this is not new. This is not a new question. It's been going on for decades. So that's really the message from my side.
Yes, thank you. No, we are agreed totally on that. It is a late call, but time to step up. And I think that in all the political areas that I'm aware of, since we are in government right now, that is the top priority, the security for our own country, for Europe, but also to build stronger and new alliances. We will still have a very good cooperation with the US, and it's important, but I also think that we will see new cooperations coming out from this, and we are moving from a peace mindset to go into something else, and I think it's an adjustment for every political level, and our cooperations are going to be tested, I think, but now is the time to step up, and we're doing our part. Being a small country, but strategically in many ways important in this equation. So I think this seminar, but also the dialogue between the armed forces, the political level, the private sector, and in the platforms where we can act, EU and other NATO, etc. We really have to step up and be faster and still do the right thing. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is, yes, really not new question, but only now we realize the urgency of it after several months Trump is in power. Because in Ukraine, I receive a lot of questions because I'm as a diplomat with 20 years experience. The people are like asking, like, but how is it possible in the today nowadays that the Putin is attacking Ukraine, that the Russia is attacking Ukraine, Trump is blaming Ukraine, and also the Putin is just laughing, looking how slow the reaction of the whole Europe and European countries and NATO countries. I agree also about the European integration, because the European integration is also our key on the way, and we have been also talked a lot about the European army, European strong army, in case, for example, also a lot of speculations, a lot of questions about if America would quit NATO, what will be after that? So how to get prepared? It's very difficult to prepare to all the unpredictable situation, but at least we have to plan. Unfortunately, like we didn't plan and we didn't prepare for the full-scale aggression. But I don't think that anybody could be prepared. And but anyway, it took too long and too slowly. At the same time, when Russia, together with North Korea and China, they can produce much more than that NATO countries. And this is like really very alarming that we have to take into consideration. And taking into this account, also the question is about the, because Sweden is really one of the biggest, very greatest partner, helping and providing a lot of military support to Ukraine that we are really very grateful for. But whether Sweden can consider like the like military bill act or something that will make it not ad hoc deliveries, but will be possible for Ukrainian armed forces to plan. So if we'll have like this for long-term planning in order to have it like more predictable and more easy for our Ukrainian armed forces. And of course, the first question for us is anti-missile, because the Sky Shield is the first priority, because the people are now killed in their own homes. And Russia doesn't care about the war crimes. They are targeting the hospitals. They are targeting the people in their home while they are sleeping. So, and we have to prevent it. And I'm sure, and I'm that we could do it together.
Once again, many questions. I can start with the European dimension, as we've previously discussed. I mean, there is no, Sweden's position, but also in the position of many other countries, is that there is no interest in any European army within the EU remit. That's one very important statement, that you need to understand that NATO is the sole provider for a war-fighting capability. What we can do is to increase the European dimension in NATO, which is already talked about. That's important. And if you do that, you will be better prepared for any maybe political developments that can happen within the alliance. I think the EU's role is very important for capability development, which is already starting, for financing, for the broader toolbox that the EU has that NATO doesn't. So it's complementarity that you're after. And to get that as efficient as possible. And I think we are waking up to start to do that. And I think if that is done efficiently, you will hopefully be able to handle some of the maybe political surprises that could be ahead of us. But as we are also well aware that security, political and events are going very, very fast. On a military cooperation and the support to Ukraine, I would say the packages have been coming nationally from Sweden. I have been participating in many Ukraine Contact Defense Group donation conferences. I have participated in the NATO Ukraine Council. And from my perspective, if you want to have a longer strategy, you need to be able to communicate between the two entities more efficiently on how your planning is going and to draw out the lines. And that's why I understand also one of the struggles for the Ukrainian armed forces is that they are so they are struggling to draw out that line and to get that planning perspective a bit further because they are in the situation they are in. And of course we can help that with furthering the support. So it's a difficult one. What I would militarily would like to have seen earlier is to have a more long-term Russia strategy, which is part of the problem. It's the main problem. And within that, how you then, in the long term, support Ukraine, because it is a long-term support that's needed. This is a long conflict, and it's going to take long time. And I think we have to switch to that mindset in Western Europe. We are very much used to thinking that you can solve something to next month or next year, but this is something else. So I think we need to be sustained and long-term support. And I think in that remit also our discussions of how we make it better and more sustainable with a longer strategy, I think can be discussed in the future. And I think we're doing that in a way, but there's a long way to go. So that's kind of how we are discussing this within NATO as well. So it's not something that's kind of in any way not there, I would say, on the contrary.
Thank you. Well, yeah, a general comment on that. There is one more war that we need to win, and that's the information war. Yes, Russia have resources, and they are supported by China, for example. But if you take a look at, we did a calculation. If you look at the economies and the capabilities collected in Europe, we are not that far behind. But yes, there are some things we have to do before we can speed up and be even close to the volumes that China and other countries can support with. But I think that the Russian narrative, of course, I mean, they are running on war economy. And Sweden just presented a new package that's agreed with all the 8 parties in the parliament. And we also have to both do the short-term priorities, but we also have to have the long-term perspective. So I think this is a new situation for all of us, and we are still adjusting and looking for how the processes and how to work in that together with other countries, but also in Sweden. So I think that we have to be ready to do things here and now, but we also have to figure out the structures on the long term, because the geopolitical map is really being redrawn as we speak. So I think that if we play this in the right political way, we can have a stronger Europe coming out of this. We have to. It is a wake-up call, but I also think that we have to see this as a possibility to use the crisis to be more innovative, to be faster, but also find new cooperations and solutions, and build on what works before.
Yes, thank you. Actually, Gotland is like Kiev is closer to the front line as many things. We also have been thinking that Kiev is very far away, especially in 2014, 2015. But now no longer, as we have like to have the sleep at night. It's really now a luxury in Ukraine. And if you consider also the Russia will be managing like to provocate for the Gotland, and if the Russian army would be like near the border of NATO, how many days do you think the NATO or especially Sweden would be holding out? So this is the question also from the auditorium that I also received just now.
I'm not going to answer that question in any way. I have former colleagues who have given answers on days, and it didn't work out well. Sweden and NATO will fight and protect every inch of the territory, ending with what we have. We are well aware of where we are at the moment. Hence, time is of essence to deliver on the capabilities. So that commitment is strong. But as you said earlier, Ukraine is fighting war for us at the moment. And we are also well aware of that. And hopefully we will avoid what you are putting. But we are not being naive in any way. We have a shortage of time to get the capabilities to deter Russia from any adventures in this region. And that's what we're working at. Swedish Armed Forces is working on 5 lines, you can say. First, to build our own capability as quickly as possible. Secondly, to operate with what we have at the moment. Third, to build up and support Ukraine. Fourth, to bring in innovation that you have shown. So there are many lines of operations that we are doing. And thirdly, of course, and lastly, NATO integration at the same time. So all these things are important for us. And hopefully Russia has already seen that the Baltic Sea and the region here is a completely different region with 2 NATO members. So I think they are in a way not maybe that tempted for any adventures now, but in 3 to 5 years, we don't know. And then we need to be ready.
Yes, no, and I'm not going to answer that question. I can tell, I don't know, to be honest. But we do know that Sweden's defense and our capabilities are built for the Russian threat. And we will keep doing what we can to support. When I did visit Ukraine, we had a meeting at the Ministry of Defense, and I believe you had up to 400 or 500 different defense systems because different countries are supporting you, and you also have to build the structure for the support system for the supply chains, for spare parts, etc. So it's everything that from the details up to the capabilities that Europe needs to build, but also what Ukraine can do, as you say yourself, to have a more long-term possibility to use your capabilities and not being dependent on other countries. So we know the situation. We see what Russia is doing right now, and I think that the government is on the right track. We can just keep doing what we do right now and work closer together, and we are in there for the long run as long as we can. That's our message.
I would like to thank the panelists. It was really a very sincere discussion, and the democracy has to be equipped not worse than tyranny. And Gripen's integrated trainings, co-production, this is the key to our success, to bring our victory closer, at the same time to increase your defense and your security. So we have to stand really together, and we have to build our production, co-production, and only together we can win this war. But then we have to also include the time that is like really we don't have it, and we have to do it right now, because the Russian army can be very soon at the border of the NATO. Thank you a lot, and stronger together, and looking forward for our further cooperation, looking forward to have Gripen in Ukraine and also more integrated training for our soldiers, because they do need it. And thank you.